This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Alright, this intro is whack. Let's kick it up a notch.
Today we're going to be rating film cameras used by celebrities. Now the good thing about film cameras is that whether you're an average Joe like myself or you are the Queen of the United Kingdom, the camera is a tool that is used by all. So in this video, I'm going to be rating each of the film cameras used by current and past celebrities, sharing my thoughts on these cameras and the iconic moments that they hold. All right, starting off with the Queen of the United Kingdom, Queen Elizabeth II. Now, this is an iconic photo because I remember when I first seen this, I was like, man, the Queen of England using a Leica, that's pretty cool, right? Now, the camera she's using is the classic Leica M3. Looks like it's also paired up with a 50mm Summicron, I wanna say rigid lens, as well as a light meter on top so she never misses her exposures. You know, it's a classy camera owned by a classy, elegant woman. I like the touch of leather as well. It seems like it has the original case on it. And because she is such a high profile individual, I think the Leica is the perfect camera for kind of her image. You know, it kind of speaks to who she is and what she does. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give the Queen and her Leica M3 an 8.5. A huge iconic moment for not only the Queen, but also for Leica and their legacy. Now sticking to the past, here we have Ringo Starr with a Contax SLR camera. Now, if you guys don't know who Ringo Starr is, he is the drummer for the Beatles, was the drummer for the Beatles, I should say. And in this picture, obviously, he's a lot younger and he has the Contax Spotmatic SP, and it looks like a 50mm 1.4 Takumar lens. Now, a funny thing about this camera that a lot of people don't really know is that the lenses sort of have this like radioactive coating on it. While the optics are really good, over time, the lenses tend to get a little bit yellow. As a matter of fact, I have the exact camera Ringo Starr was shooting right here, and if you can look at that lens right there, it just turns yellow over time. Now the SLR that he is shooting with, I'm sure has seen a ton of behind the scenes of the Beatles, you know, them probably in the practice room or even just smoking cigarettes. And so for that reason, I'm gonna give this setup here a solid 8.5. All right, so let's fast forward this a little bit and talk about a modern day celebrity. And the next one here is going to be Kylie Jenner and her ever so famous Contax T2. Now I specifically remember this interview that she did. I think it was like a Jimmy Fallon interview. And in that interview, she mentioned that she was shooting film and that she had a Contax T2. The reason why I remember this interview is because that year, I think it was 2018, I think I was like 19 years old. I was saving up a ton of money to buy a Contax T2. And as I was nearing my goal, that interview came out and the Contax T2 prices just inflated like a freaking blowfish. And ever since then, the Contax T2 has never really been the same as a camera. Fast forward, I wanna say 5 or 7 years later, I actually picked one up in Japan last year. And while this camera is extremely cool and fun, I also think it's a camera that is overly hyped because of Kendall Jenner. But you also have to consider that this is a fully electronic camera. And once this thing poops out and there's no more spare parts available, they get really hard to repair and they get really expensive to repair. So Kendall Jenner and her Contax T2, I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10. Fantastic camera, but also once it breaks, it's pretty much done for, so it's a ticking time bomb. With that said, another modern day celebrity was also seen with a film camera, and that is none other than Zendaya. But here she is pictured with a Contax G2, which is kind of insane because the G2 is a very iconic camera. It's a rangefinder camera that has interchangeable lenses, but it also has autofocus, which is not typically seen in rangefinder cameras. But the one thing that kind of throws me off about this picture is the way she's holding the camera. What you definitely don't want to do is hold the bottom like this because you're gonna block that viewfinder window. And while she doesn't have it blocked, she's holding it like this. And in the position that she's holding it at, with her eye being right here, you can't really see in the viewfinders. The more improved way to kind of hold the camera vertically is to tilt it this way. Now because of that, I'm gonna give Zendaya and her G2 here a modest 6 out of 10. I like the camera. I love Zendaya as, you know, an actress and whatnot, but the way she's holding it just throws me off a little bit. Now before we move on to the rest of these celebrities and their cameras, I wanna take a second to thank our sponsor for this segment of the video, which are the good folks over at Squarespace. One way to solidify your photography business or even just your personal brand is to create your own professional website. Now, with the use of AI technology, you can have Squarespace help you craft your perfect website. You also have pages for a portfolio so you can display your work professionally and beautifully, as well as an option for an e-commerce shop so you can start selling your own prints or photography services. And as your photography business or brand starts to grow, with Squarespace payments, you can take pretty much any form of payment from your clients, which in this day and age is extremely important. So if you want to get started with your own professional website today, head over to squarespace.com/kingjapes or enter promo code kingjapes at checkout, and you guys are going to get 10% off of your first purchase of a domain or a website. Huge thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. All right, moving on. Next up, we have Mick Jagger and his Polaroid. Now, I don't know the exact name of this Polaroid model, but it does seem like it's a Polaroid land camera. And what's really interesting is that those things actually come flat. So that little kind of rectangle at the front there that's holding that lens actually retracts into sort of this body, and it looks kind of like a flat book, if you will. But seeing a celebrity or artist like Mick Jagger with a Polaroid makes me wonder, what he made pictures of. Was it pictures of him and, the band out and about doing shows, or is it him and groupies? I don't know, doing fun things, I guess. So I'm gonna give this a rating of 8 out of 10. And whether or not he was actually using it or he was just holding it in his hands, it does look really sick. All right, next up we have Green Day sporting looks like a Kodak disposable camera. I kind of grew up with Green Day. I was a huge American Idiot, Dookie fan, and these are album names, by the way, guys. But if you watch any of Green Day's music videos, specifically Basket Case, you get this sense of just like what the 90s was all about, at least from my perspective, and I have a very limited perspective. So it's very fitting that there's a disposable camera used on this. I think this might be like an album cover, and disposable cameras are often very, very praised for the direct flash and giving you this kind of party type of look, which I think that a lot of people kind of associate with that 90s feel and theme. So a disposable camera to match Green Day, it matches the time, it matches kind of the vibe as well. I'm gonna give this a solid 9 out of 10. I think the disposable is the perfect fit for Green Day's aesthetic. All right, next up you have Johnny Depp and the Minolta SRT 101. Now folks, the camera that he is holding in this picture is a camera that is often underrated. It's one of the most underrated film cameras of all time. Now folks, the SRT 101 is a pure mechanical camera, which means you can operate the shutter and all of the different shutter speeds without the use of a battery. Now granted, a lot of the models, including the SRT 101, had the option for a battery, but the battery only operated the light meter. So if you ever ran out of battery, your light meter just wouldn't work, but you would still be able to use the camera. Now I have a huge love for Minolta cameras. Actually, the first camera I owned was a Minolta camera, so I have no choice but to give Johnny Depp and the SRT 101 a 10 out of 10. If you guys didn't see that coming, you guys are tripping balls, because that is literally one of my favorite cameras of all time right there, SRT 101. All right, next up you have Paul McCartney doing a self-portrait with a twin lens reflex camera. Now TLR cameras, like the ones you see in this picture here, are medium format, of course, and the name that's often associated with TLR cameras is Rolleiflex. Now I don't know if this is a Rolleiflex camera, and judging based off of what it looks like here, I still can't tell because that could really be anything here, but okay, so here is my Rolleiflex right here. And the difference between these cameras and your standard SLR cameras is that in order to take a picture, you need to flip this open, and you have this ground glass that's going to show you a display of what you're looking at. So you're gonna look down at it from here, and you're gonna use the lenses up front to kind of see outwards. Hence why Paul McCartney, when he made that image, was doing something like this, looking a little too awkward. Now, if you owned a TLR camera, you've made this portrait before. Everybody does this exact same portrait. But I think his facial expression in this, as well as the way he's holding the camera, is correct. I'm gonna give this a 10 out of 10 as well. I like the texture. I love the classic look. Overall, very iconic image. I love the grain as well. All right, next up, you got Robert Plant and Jimmy Page with a Nikon F2. Now, Nikon is one of those camera companies that anybody in this world can distinguish. But when you look at some of the older cameras, more specifically the Nikon F2, if you're not a film camera nerd like us, most of the time you're gonna look at it and say, whoa, that looks pretty crazy. Now, if you look at the F2 on the left side of the camera, that top element right there, they call that the prism. It's freaking huge, and that's easily what kind of stood out to me immediately when I first saw the image, and that's how I could tell it was an F2 even before I read the description of the photo. Now, as for my rating, I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 10. I do really like the fact that they know how to use the camera, and what I really love about this image is that they look look like they're just having fun. Maybe they're taking pictures of each other, or maybe they're just going on a photo walk to clear their head. And last but not least, folks, we have a photograph from the moon. Now this image is of Buzz Aldrin on the moon, who was shot by Neil Armstrong using a Hasselblad camera. Now more specifically, this was the Hasselblad 500C. The 500C also had a waist level viewfinder, but it wasn't a twin lens reflex camera. Instead, it had one main lens in the front, which also housed the shutter. So basically what you see is what you get through that viewfinder. Now I'm just gonna give my rating and say it's a 10 out of 10, and it's not because of the Hasselblad 500C itself, but rather the legacy that every single item that was brought up to the moon has had since that time. So for example, Hasselblad will always be world renowned for being the camera that was taken to the moon. Now in terms of watches, Omega will always be known as the watch that was worn by Buzz Aldrin, who went to the moon. You know, this is an iconic moment for humans. And while everybody has seen these photos before, I think it's insane to think that we crafted these things and created them on a planet, and we were able to take them away from the planet and take them elsewhere. But in this photo, you have Buzz Aldrin inside of a spacesuit, and inside of the reflection of his face mask, you see Neil Armstrong holding the Hasselblad. The reason also why I'm giving this picture a 10 out of 10 is because if you look at the horizon line of the moon in the background, first and foremost, it kind of gives you an idea of the shape of the moon, but second, it is perfectly aligned with the reflection in the face mask. So very nice picture, very iconic moment for human history. And what better way to end the celebrity list with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. But that is going to wrap it up, folks. If you guys enjoyed this episode, drop a like down below and also hit that subscribe button for more. If you guys have any other celebrities with cameras that you want me to kind of rate or maybe even react to, leave those in the comment section down below. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. I'm going to be doing a huge giveaway at 200K subscribers. So if you are new to this channel, definitely hit that subscribe button. But I'll see you guys in the next one. As always, Minoltagang.